In this playthrough of Pokemon Emerald, I wanted to see if I could beat a hardcore Nuzlocke with the worst luck possible. My hardcore Nuzlocke rules are as follows. I can only catch one Pokemon from every route, I cannot use items during battle, I have to play on set mode, I can't over-level the next gym leader's ace, and if a Pokemon faints, it must be permanently boxed. Now Pokemon Nuzlocke runs tend to involve a lot of luck, from what encounters you get to what natures and IVs your Pokemon have. I wanted to see if a run was possible if I deliberately gave myself the worst luck. So in this video, any Pokemon I catch will have its IVs set to 0, I'll be giving all my Pokemon the worst possible natures, and to top it all off, I'll be picking the worst Pokemon from every route to use as my encounter. Going into this, I wasn't exactly sure how difficult this would make the run, but let's just say I slightly underestimated what I was signing myself up for. With that, let's jump into the run and see if I can beat an unlucky Pokemon Emerald hardcore Nuzlocke. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, it really helps me out, lets me know you guys are enjoying. So first things first, the starter choice. I did decide to pick the least useful starter in the spirit of this run. Now none of these are bad, but Mudkip and Torchic are both amazing, and even in a game with too much water, Trico still falls slightly short of the other two. Black Cat joins the team, and funnily enough, considering his name, he actually has what I think is the worst possible nature for him already, so I don't need to change that. I do reset his IVs to 0 though. I do this for every encounter I get from this point, along with resetting all their EVs before every gym fight. With that, we can start our adventure and go searching for our first encounter. Out of the options of Poochyena and Zigzagoon, Poochyena is by far the worst, but I love her anyway, and we name her Ladybug. Next, I get the joy of trying to find a 1% encounter C-Dot. I really need to start coming up with runs that mean I have to catch 1% encounters. After about 35 minutes though, a C-Dot does turn up, who we catch and name Crow. Thanks to our level cap of 15, Crow can immediately evolve into a slightly less useless Nuzleaf. Our next encounter is a Marill, whose stats are actually laughable, who we name Macbeth. We then venture into Petalburg Woods, and I don't think there's a huge difference between Dustox and Beautifly, so I'll pick based on whichever one turns up. I catch a Cascoon, meaning we're getting Dustox. Salt Shaker is able to evolve into Dustox immediately like Crow, thanks to our level cap. Now only 2 more encounters before the next gym, both of which are very underwhelming. A Skitty I name 3-match, and a Wishmer I name Clock. There's a lot of encounters I catch in this run but don't end up using, so I'll make sure to only mention the ones that make it into the gym fights. Otherwise this video would be about 8 hours long. With that, it's time for the first gym. I'm not expecting this fight to be hard, I've got a water and a grass type, so no way I'd struggle against a rock type gym leader, right? So the fight starts off really well as I send out Black Cat, who is easily able to take out both Roxanne's Geodudes with Absorb, and then the Nose Pass comes out. I go through an Absorb that really doesn't do a lot of damage, and then on the next turn, Nose Pass retaliates with a Rock Tomb that does over half. This is a problem. I think I've underestimated how much difference setting all my EVs to 0 has actually made. Now with Absorb's heal, I will probably live another Rock Tomb, but I don't want to risk a crit, so I switch into Macbeth, who is able to take a Rock Tomb on the switch slightly better than Black Cat did, to be honest. I start going for Water Guns as Nose Pass starts going for Hardens and Tackles. If I get lucky here and it keeps doing that, I can probably get through this deathless, so I keep going for Water Gun while Roxanne goes to Hardens and Tackles. Macbeth would get the knockout here because Tackle isn't doing much, but unfortunately Roxanne heals the Nose Pass with an Oran Berry and 2 potions, meaning Macbeth isn't able to get the KO on the stupid Rock Nose before being taken out with a Rock Tomb. Rest in peace Macbeth, your stats might have been awful, but your sacrifice will not be forgotten. I decide to avoid losing anyone else. My best bet is to put Nose Pass to sleep with 3-match and then finish it off with Black Cat. Luckily a Sync connects, meaning I can switch into Black Cat. I switch in as Nose Pass stays asleep. Absorb crits, meaning as long as Nose Pass doesn't wake up on this turn and crit, I should be fine to win the match. And of course in a run where I deliberately give myself awful luck, I still managed to get unlucky. Rest in peace Black Cat, you clearly didn't have 9 lives. Luckily the Nose Pass is low enough that Salt Shaker is able to come out and take down the Nose Pass, even if it does take 2 confusions and mean I have to risk another crit from a Rock Tomb. I won the battle, but this fight has shown this run isn't going to be a walk in the park. We only have a couple bits to do before the second gym. We catch a Tentacruel north of Duthwood Town, who we name Umbrella, and in Granite Cave we catch a Makuhita, we name Tableshoe. We're also able to evolve Ladybug into Mightyena thanks to our level cap of 19, meaning she is now at least a little bit more useful thanks to Intimidate. With that we're ready for Brawly, which despite all his Pokemon having Bulk Up, which can be kind of scary, he is completely free with Salt Shaker. Matchup goes down to 2 confusions, Meditite goes down to a couple with Gus, and then Makuhita goes down to a few more confusions. Nice easy gym fight, I hope more are like that. We actually only get 1 more encounter before the next gym, a Plusle I named Friday, our only electric encounters for the run. In an effort to teach Friday early Thunderbolt, I decide to go gambling, and I'm searching through the coin case and... Anyway, turns out to get the coin case you have to find Harbour Mail in Slateport, which I logically searched through in the market. Anyway, after that trauma, we can evolve Table Shoot into Hariyama, and then we're ready to fight Watson. This fight is tricky because Watson has lots of strong, fast Pokemon, and he starts with an exploding Voltorb, which nothing on my team can KO before giving it the chance to explode. I decide my best bet is Ladybug, who can at least lower its attack with Intimidate, slightly lowering the chances it gets a KO by going kaboom. So we start off with Ladybug, who gets the Intimidate off. Turn 1, it goes to the Shockwave, I get off a weak bite, it goes to the Spark, and I go through a second bite, just barely missing the KO. I know Watson will heal on the next turn, so I decide to go for Howl, not remembering that Bite is a special move in this game, meaning it's a wasted turn. Silly me for thinking Bite would be physical. I then get hit by a weak Thundershock, while only doing less than half with another bite. At this point I know it's going to use Self-Destruct because it sees the KO with that move, so I don't really have any other choice but to salute my brave little puppy and watch as she gets vaporized by the Voltorb. Rest in peace. Up next is Electrike, who is easily taken out with a combination of Arm Thrust and Fake Out from Table Shoe. Magmaton is up next, who immediately misses a Sonic Boom and then just barely survives an Arm Thrust. On the next turn, Watson heals and another Arm Thrust just leaves Magmaton above half. I then get hit by a Confuse Ray, and Table Shoes hits himself in confusion, meaning he's just below half health. Things then get a bit dicey as I get hit with a really strong Shockwave, low enough to where if Table Shoe hurts himself again, he will go down. But luckily he breaks through, nailing Magmaton with a Vital Throw, getting the KO. Last is Manectric, who is going to be an issue. I switch into Thriday, who takes minimal damage from a Shockwave, and then Manectric hits a Thunder Wave. Luckily I predict this and go for Encore, locking Manectric into Thunder Wave. I then spend a turn going for my own Thunder Wave, and then on the next turn a Quick Attack does next to nothing. Then my bad luck on this unlucky run continues because Manectric's Encore ends after 2 turns, which seems unfair, but I guess an unlucky run and all that. I then go for a Spark, but we both get paralysed. I then try to go for Encore again, but Thriday gets paralysed for a second turn in a row. Manectric then goes to Howl, which means this thing's now scary as I get off a Spark that does at least some damage because it crits. I then go for another Spark, but unfortunately Manectric goes for a Quick Attack and crits, taking down Thriday. Rest in peace Thriday, we hardly knew ye. I decide on Salt Shaker next, who starts going through weak side beams as Manectric gets paralysed twice in a row. Unfortunately another side beam brings it low enough where it can recover with a berry, meaning it heals back to above half. I decide I don't really have a choice but to keep going for the side beam, and luckily Manectric gets paralysed for a third time. I then get off one more side beam before Salt Shaker is paralysed herself. Luckily I equipped her with a Cherry Berry before the fight. I then get off another side beam before being paralysed again. I then get incredibly lucky as Manectric gets paralysed 2 more turns in a row and Salt Shaker doesn't get paralysed once, meaning I'm able to hit Manectric with 2 more side beams, knocking it out. Wow, I can't believe that I actually won that. For an unlucky run, that got insanely lucky there at the end. Before the next gym we get a load of encounters, so I'm going to speed through them to avoid making this video 8 hours long. We catch a Numel, who we name Owl on Route 112, a Grimer we name Chopstick on Fiery Path, a Spinder we name Chain on Route 113, a Seviper we name Ladder on 114, and a Solrock we name Mirror in Meteor Falls. Finally, we collect a Why Not Egg, who we call Magpie in Latheridge Town, who were immediately able to evolve into Wobbuffet. We're also able to evolve 3-match into Delkiddy with a Moonstone we find in Meteor Falls. With that, we're ready for Flannery and her fire types. We start with Umbrella, who is easily able to take down the Numel with a single Bubble Beam, and Slugma just manages to survive the hit, meaning I have to stall out the Sun and Day it gets up. But after a few turns of stalling, it goes down to a Bubble Beam. Camerupt also annoyingly just survives a Bubble Beam, meaning it's able to get off an Attract. After being immobilized twice by this Camerupt, he gets the Sun up, meaning I confuse it in an attempt to stall out the Sun for a second time this fight. On the next turn I get immobilized for the 3rd time, so I decide Umbrella has done his work and switch into Table Shoe. Table Shoe hits a weak Arm Thrust and then gets hits with an Attract again. Why is this camel thing so damn sexy? I decide I really don't want to play around with Attract again, so I switch into Mirror, who is then able to knock out the stupid sexy camel with the 2 rock throws. Then comes out Torkoal, who shouldn't be too much of an issue. With the Sun up, Overheat will probably hit fairly hard, but for some reason it just keeps going for Body Slam. It does paralyze, but after 3 turns of rock throws and 1 side beam, I'm able to take the Torkoal down without being paralyzed once. Well done, Mirror. That's Thor Gym badges down. Upon winning the badge, Umbrella is immediately able to evolve into Tentacruel. We only get one more notable encounter before the next badge, an adorable Sandshrew we name Coyote. With that, it's time to face our dad, Norman. I'm hoping Hariyama is able to make short work of his normal type team, but we'll have to find out. I start off with Table Shoe and Norman starts off with Spinder. Now I don't have access to Prison Berries yet, so I just have to hope I get lucky with Confusion as Spinder uses Teeter Dance on turn 1. I then hit myself in Confusion. Bad start. Turn 2 I get hit with a fairly hard side beam, but Table Shoe breaks through the Confusion and KOs the Spinder with a single Vital Throw. Next is Vigoroth, who hits a weak Facade before just surviving a Vital Throw. I know Norman will heal next turn, so I decide it's probably best to try and kill this monkey with something else. So as Norman heals, I switch into Ladder. I then go through a decently strong Crunch as Vigoroth goes through another weak Facade. I then get brought fairly low with a slash, and just manage to miss the KO again with another crunch. Just missing these KOs is killing me, I swear. I decide I should probably let my snake go down here, so I stay in as ladder takes a third to the side. Rip ladder, you just had to low roll, didn't you? I then switch into umbrella and get the KO with the bubble beam. Next up is Winona, and this thing is scary. It has belly drum, meaning it could sweep my whole team if I'm not careful. Because of this, I go for supersonic, which unfortunately misses, and I'm hit with a decently strong slash. I decide it's worth trying again, but miss a second time and then get hit with another slash. This is payment for all that paralysed luck against Watson, I suppose. I then switch into 3 match, planning to put the Winona to sleep, but get crit on the switch in. This is getting kinda bad, so I switch into Mirror, who takes a slash on the switch. I then start going for rock throw, as Laloon starts going for weak headbutts and slashes. Luckily I don't get crit or again or flinched, and 3 rock throws later Laloon goes down. Last is slacking, but with protect I should be able to wall it with Salt Shaker and take it down. Salt Shaker takes a weak feint attack on the switch in, and then I'm able to get a 3 Moonlight heal off as slacking loafs around. My plan is fairly simple of using protect on the turns that it can attack and using psychic to wear it down. Only one problem, I wasn't expecting psychic to do quite that little damage. I'm actually probably going to run out of PP here before I can actually get the KO. I decide I don't really have much of the choice though and decide to stick with the plan, so I start chipping the slacking down. Eventually though I do run out of the PP as slacking heals with the berry. I do decide to go for a light screen on the turn I run out of PP in case slacking goes to the feint attack, and somehow Salt Shaker survives the facade. I then switch into Umbrella on a truant turn, and then on the next turn get off the bubble beam, which just misses the KO, meaning Umbrella goes down. I send out Table Shoe and go for a Vital Throw, but at this point it's all over as Normon heals with a Hyper Potion, meaning the slacking is going to be able to sweep my entire team. Vital Throw does a lot of damage, but on the next turn slacking outspeeds and knocks out Table Shoe with the facade. Mirror gets off a weak rock throw in defiance of the inevitable as slacking loafs around, but on the next turn he's knocked out with a feint attack. I then just have to watch as match 3 goes down to a facade, and then Salt Shaker suffers the same fate. There goes attempt 1. I think had Psychic been doing slightly more damage, or I hadn't lost so much HP against the Winona, we might have been able to get a win there. Next time I'll have to try and find some way to stall out with Leech Seed or Toxic. Let's jump right back in with attempt 2 then. We jump right back into the Roxanne fight, and I know I have to weaken the nose pass because brute force just won't cut it. So after the Geodudes go down, again in 1 absorb each, I switch into match 3. My plan here is to put nose pass to sleep and lower its attack to -6 with Growl. I switch into match 3 and get off the Sing, and luckily I miss and get hit with a fairly hard Rock Tomb. Next time I get hit with a Block, which I didn't know lasts forever in this gen, which means match 3 is probably going to go down here. Luckily I then do put the nose pass to sleep, meaning I can start going for growls. I get off the 6 growls, but 3 matches stuck, so I have to keep going for tackle doing chip damage until match 3 is crit by tackle and then taken down with a Rock Tomb. Rest in peace Skitty, you were by far the most useful Skitty has ever been. Unfortunately match 3's sacrifice does seem a little bit in vain because nose pass then misses 2 Rock Tombs and then we crit a third absorb, meaning the nose pass goes down without even hitting us. That was totally worth lowering its attack to -6. Oh well, at least the fight went better than last time. As we didn't lose Black Cat and Macbeth, unlike Attempt 1, they're both able to evolve into Azumarill and Growlithe. Brawly goes down the exact same way as Attempt 1 and is a completely 3 fight, despite us having Beautifly instead of Dustox this run. This time we either manage to do Watson Deathless, meaning his fight is completely 3 and we can skip right back to Flannery. The fight starts exactly the same way, with Numel going for a single Bubble Beam and then Slugma just surviving a Bubble Beam, meaning I have to stall out the sun. Eventually though, Bubble Beams take out the Slugma. Next the Sexy Camel comes out and I decide it's worth trying to use it as the sun is still up, but I miss Confuse Ray. I really need to stop going for Confusion. Despite this, I go for a second time, missing again. Okay, definitely never going for Confuse Ray again. Luckily Camerupt misses a tackle, so I'm not taking too much damage with all of my misses. The sunny day wears off, meaning I can start going for Bubble Beam. The Camerupt survives though, like the first time, and resets the sun, but on the next turn goes down to a second Bubble Beam. Then Flannery's last Pokemon, Torkoal, comes out. I decide it's worth, even with the sun up, to see how much damage Bubble Beam does, which is nothing. Torkoal doesn't like this idea though, because it goes to Body Slam, which crits, killing Umbrella. It's a real shame to lose Umbrella here because she's such a good Pokemon, but the show must go on. Rest in peace, Umbrella. Then we start the most annoying 5v1 I can remember having in a Pokemon game. I send out Table Shoe, who gets off a Fake Out for some chip, but it really doesn't do anything. I then go for Knockoff to get rid of Torkoal's White Herb, and then get hit with an Attract. I then proceed to get immobilized by Love twice in a row, while Torkoal hits me with a weak Body Slam and resets up the sun. On the next turn, I crit a Vitals Throw that just misses the KO for the 90th turn this run. Table Shoe is getting fairly low at this point, so I decide to switch out and go into Macbeth, who takes a weak Body Slam on the switch. I then go for a Bubble Beam, which misses the KO again, meaning Macbeth takes another Body Slam. On the next turn, Flannery heals and I hit another Bubble Beam, which again does next to nothing because the sun is still up, and Azumarill's stats are actually abysmal. The sun does end however, so I go for another Bubble Beam on the next turn to bring the Torkoal back to half HP as it sets up the sun again. I then go through a bubble beam that leaves Torkoal with about a third of its HP, and then get hit with another body slam. I'm low enough now where I need to switch, so I go into Mirror, who is easily able to tank a body slam on the switch. I then go through a rock throw that misses and get hit with a second body slam. I then hit another rock throw that just misses the KO for the 900th time this fight, and Torkoal actually goes to overheat for the first time in this 90-minute match, and puts Mirror at 2 HP. That gave me a heart attack. I then switch into Ladybug, who tanks a body slam and is able to get the KO with a bite on the next turn. I wasn't kidding when I said this 5v1 was annoying. Alright, with that we're back at Norman. Before we can fight him though, I do grab an extra encounter I didn't last time, a Cacnea we name Longtails. Okay, rematch time. Norman starts with Spinder again, and I realise my own Spinder has own tempo, meaning it can't be confused and is fairly useful at taking this thing out. Chain starts with the return, which does just above half, while Norman's own Spinder goes through a facade, which does about a third. On the next turn I go through a second return for the knockout. Easy. Surprisingly, Norman then goes to slacking, and unfortunately I decide it's best to let Chain go down here. So on the next turn, slacking outspeeds and gets the KO on my Spinder. Thanks Chain, you did your job and you did it well. Next it's time to implement my master plan for taking down this slacking, which is fairly simple to be honest. I switch into Ladybug, who gets off an Intimidate. I go for Sand Attack on the turn slacking can't do anything, then switch into Mirror, slacking will always go for counter as it sees it as a super effective mood into Ladybug. It will then go Feint Attack into Mirror, but I'll switch back into Ladybug, who resists the Feint Attack. I'll repeat this till slacking is at -6 attack and -6 accuracy, and then knock it out. Again, simple. So once the slacking is at -6 and can't do anything, I send out Table Shoe, who is freely able to come in and get the kill with a combination of vital throws and takeouts. That's the killing of my team, you big stupid monkey. Next comes out Vigoroth, who gets a crit before going down to a single vital throw. Now it's just Laloon. Now the crit last turn means I really should switch out, but a berry brings me just slightly high enough where I can risk another crit here to get the one shot on the Laloon. Laloon goes through a facade, and luckily it doesn't crit, meaning we're able to finish off the Laloon and get on with the rest of the game. 5 badges down, free to go. As a reward for winning the 5th gym badge, we're able to evolve Longtails into Cacturn and Owl into Cramorant. Funnily enough, I don't think I've used either of these Pokemon fights that have been in the video yet, but at some point I will, promise. We're able to get 2 new encounters, a Castthorn we name Rainbow and an Absol we name Horseshoe. With that, we're ready for the flying type gym leader, Winona. This fight can be an issue because of Dragon Dancing Altaria, but I have a fairly safe plan, so fingers crossed. I start off with Coyote, and Winona starts off with Swablu. This thing can't really touch my Coyote with anything but a weak aerial ace, so we're free to keep going for slash till it goes down. Up next is Tropius, who we get a weak slash into before it starts setting up a solar beam, so we switch into Owl. Owl takes a decent amount because he's part ground from the solar beam on the switch, but on the next turn Tropius tries to set up another solar beam, meaning we're able to get a flamethrower off and cleanly get the KO. Next up is Pelipper, who goes through a water gun, but we switch into Thriday, who takes it very well. Pelipper then protects through a few turns as we go for Thunderbolt, but eventually Pelipper doesn't go for Protect, Thunderbolt gets through, and we're able to get another easy KO. Next up is Altaria, who again should be scary, but is actually completely countered by Mirror. Altaria will go for Dragon Dance, because it can't see the kill with anything else, but Mirror has Levitate, meaning it can't be hit by Earthquake. The only move Dragon Dance is actually affecting. That means if I go for Cosmic Power to get to +6 defense and special defense, while Winona uses Dragon Dance to get her attack to +6, I will just win this fight. That's exactly what happens. I switch into Earthquake, which does nothing, and then I get off 6 Cosmic Powers while Altaria gets off 6 Dragon Dances. I'm then easily able to tank any Dragon Breaths this Altaria uses, and then get the knockout with a couple of Rock Throws. Easy! Winona's final Pokemon is Skarmory, who is able to tank a few Flamethrowers, but because of my +6 defense, it really can't touch Mirror, meaning after a few turns of Flamethrowers it goes down, winning us the 6th gym badge. With our level cap of 42, we're able to evolve Black Cat into Sceptile. We also catch a number of useful encounters, a Shuppet we name Mixing Beer, and a Wingull we name Inside Out, and an Oddish we name Tuesday. We do get one more encounter who is vital for our next gym, Electrode we name Flipfish. We're able to immediately evolve Mixing Beer and Inside Out into Bayonet and Pelipper, just in time for the next gym, Tantalizer. Now this gym scares me. The further we get into this run, the better Pokemon everyone has, meaning it's becoming more and more apparent how bad my Pokemon actually are. This is going to be a problem in a double battle, so let's see if our band of leftovers can handle the 7th and hardest gym of this game. We start off with the tried and true method for Nuzlockers getting through this fight, Exploding Electrode. Unfortunately though, even with Silk Scarf, self-destruct isn't enough to knock out either Claydol or Xatu. but it does leave them both really low. Your sacrifice won't be in vain, Clipfish. I send out Ladybug on the switch, who gets off an Intimidate, meaning the Earthquake that comes out of Claydol isn't doing quite as much as it could have been. Xatu just goes for a Psychic into Ladybug, which doesn't do anything. Little bit of luck there. I decide to double up here into Claydol as I know Xatu will heal. I misclick though, meaning a bite goes into Xatu, and Surf isn't able to bring down the Claydol on its own. Well, a time to misclick, honestly. I then decide it's fairly safe to switch into Black Cat here. Earthquake at -1 shouldn't do much, and Psychic will always aim for inside out because it doesn't affect Ladybug. Black Cat comes out and Claydol gets healed to full health, and Xatu confuses inside out. Luckily, I still get a Surf off, doing a little bit more chip damage to both of them. On the next turn, I go through a Leaf Blade on Claydol, just missing the KO. Claydol retaliates with an Earthquake, which doesn't do much of anything, and Xatu is able to confuse Black Cat while Inside Out hits herself in confusion. Bit of a weird turn there. On the next turn, I switch into Ladybug for another Intimidate, who tanks another Earthquake on the switch in. Inside Out just tanks the Psychic, and then annoyingly hits herself in confusion again, leaving her in the red. I really need to start getting lucky on those confusion rolls if I want to win here. I go through it and break out of confusion. Good timing because both Tate and Liza go for Psychics into the Protect. This lets Ladybug get off a bite into Xatu, getting 1 KO. On the next turn I decide to risk a second Protect to do the same thing, but this time getting the kill on Claydol instead. It works and I get the second Protect off, but for some reason they decide to heal Claydol this turn. I don't understand why they didn't last turn. Because of this heal, Bite doesn't get the KO, even if it does do some decent damage. I decide I should probably let Inside Out go down here, so on the next turn I let Claydol finish off my dumb bird with a Psychic. Thank you Inside Out, you'll always be remembered whenever I watch that emotionally crippling Pixar film. I then send out Macbeth, who takes a Psychic from Lunatone fairly well on the switch, as I get off a bite into the moon. Both Claydol and Lunatone are now low enough where I'm happy sending Black Cat out to hopefully finish them both off with a Leaf Blade. On the turn I switch, Black Cat takes a tiny amount of damage from Earthquake, and Macbeth takes slightly more damage. Macbeth is then hit with another Psychic that very nearly kills, but he survives, getting off another Surf. I decide that both the AI will target Macbeth here because they seal the kill, so on the next turn I switch into Ladybug, who is immune to both of the Psychic attacks. My prediction is correct, as Lunatone's Psychic does nothing into Ladybug, and Black Cat's Leaf Blade is finally able to bring down the Claydol. Next, Solrock comes out and I'm worried Leaf Blade won't get the KO from full health and a Flamethrower will kill Black Cat. My only choice is to sack Macbeth here so Ladybug has time to do a little bit of damage, so Leaf Blade will be a guaranteed KO. Macbeth gets put to sleep on the switch surprisingly, and Solrock starts setting up a Solar Beam as Ladybug hits it with a bite. I assume there's no way Solar Beam isn't going to the Ladybug slot, so next turn it's safe to switch Black Cat into that slot. Prediction is correct, meaning I get Black Cat back in mostly for 3, but unfortunately there's nothing I can do as Lunatone hits Macbeth with another Psychic, taking her out. Sleep well, you terrible, terrible Pokemon. I switch Ladybug back in, as I'm expecting Solrock to be knocked out before it can do anything, and Lunatone can't hit him. I'm correct luckily that Solrock was low enough to die to a Leaf Blade, securing us a third KO. Lunatone goes for a Light Scream, but this fight is now won on my favour. I'm expecting a heal here, so there's no reason to risk Black Cat, so I switch into Mixing Beer as Lunatone is healed back to full. It's then a case of hitting it with one more bite and one Shadow Ball to secure us the win. That was a fairly messy fight, and I'm still shocked to be honest that we won it all, even with half our team being knocked out. There's actually only one more important encounter Letharath's this run, a Whalmer we named Candle. Immediately evolved Candle into Whale Lord, and we also evolved Chopsticks into Muck. With that it's final gym time, and this should be an easy enough fight assuming there's no problems with Kingdra. Second video in a row where the last gym has an annoying Kingdra I have to work around. Strange that it happened twice. Anyway, on to the last gym fight. I start off with Friday and June starts off with a Luddisk. Why a Luddisk? Anyway, to no one's surprise, Luddisk goes down to a single Thunderbolt. Next is Wish Cash, so I switch into Black Cat, who easily tanks an Earthquake and then gets the one-hit KO with the Leaf Blade. Celio is third, who I decide I will probably be able to take down with a single Leaf Blade. I was wrong and it gets off a fairly scary Aura Beam, but on the next turn it just heals, meaning 3 more Leaf Blades are enough to get the KO. Then the Kingdra comes out and I have a fairly simple plan, Perish Song. I pivot into Candle first instead of straight into Horseshoe, who can easily take anything this Kingdra can do. Once Candle is out, I know it will go for Smoke Screen or Double Team because it can't do anything to Candle, meaning I can safely switch into Horseshoe and then get on the next turn a Perish Song up. Then it's just a case of stalling with Candle, with Dive, and waiting for it to go down. The AI does switch, however, rather than let Kingdra go down, and to be honest, I wasn't sure if it would do this or not. The AI can be a bit strange when it comes to stuff like this. Wallace does switch, however, into Crawdad, so I switch into Table Shoe, clearly KO with a Vital Throw. Then it's just a case of sending Horseshoe back in, using Perish Song again, and then stalling till Kingdra goes down. Easy 8th gym badge. So much smoother than the Tantalizer fight. With that out the way, it's time for the Elite Four, and looking at my team options, I can say I'm really not very confident. I work out a team I can consistently-ish beat the champion Wallace with, only if all 6 of the Pokemon make it to him, which is not very likely considering it's the team built around him and not the rest of the Elite Four. Oh well, it's the best I can come up with, so let's see who we're bringing. Black Cat the Sceptile, Candle the Whale Lord, Longtails the Catturn, Friday the Plusle, Tuesday the Bellossom, and Tableshoe the Hariyama. Let's go win us a lead, guys. Up first is Sydney, who feels like he's a generation early because without the physical special split, his team is a bit of a joke, to be honest. His Mightyena starts off with Intimidate, so I start off with Friday and then switch into Tableshoe. I then get hit with a Sand Attack on the switch, go for a Fake Out on the next turn for some chip, and then get hit with a decently strong Double Edge on the next turn, before taking out Sydney's first Pokemon with the Brick Break. Next up is Shiftry, who knows Extra Sensory, so I switch into Tuesday. Surprisingly, Shiftry goes for a double team on the switch. I suppose it didn't see the KO with Extra Sensory, I'm not sure on that one. On the next turn, Tuesday gets hit with a Swagger, but I plan for this with a Present Berry, but then I miss a Sludge Bomb. Shiftry then goes for another double team, but we're able to land a Sludge Bomb, and thanks to an attack boost from Swagger, score a one-hit KO. Absol is next, so I switch into Friday as Absol goes for a Sword Stance. That's kind of perfect, as I can then outspeed and get off an Encore, locking Absol into Sword Stance. That has a slight risk to it. It does take a fair few Thunderbolts to get a KO as Sydney heals with a Citrus Berry and a Full Restore, meaning if Encore had ended early, I could be looking at a +6 attack Pokemon, but luckily it doesn't and we get the KO after a couple of Thunderbolts. Second to last is Sydney's own Cacturn, so I switch back into Tuesday on a Cotton Spore, tank a fairly weak Feint Attack on the following turn, and then get off a Sludge Bomb for the KO. Last is Crawdon, who outspeeds, it just goes to Sword Stance, and then a Giga Drain from Tuesday is easily able to take it out. That's the easiest member of the Elite Four down, no issues. Second in the Elite Four is Phoebe, and to be honest this shouldn't be too much of an issue. Phoebe starts off with Dusclops, and I start off with Longtails the Catturn. I know Dusclops will probably protect on the first turn here, so I get off the Growth, raising my special attack, and I decide this Dusclops can't actually do much to me, so it's probably worth getting off the second Growth. Dusclops hits me with a Confuse Ray, but luckily I've given myself Person Berry, meaning that the confusion is immediately healed. I then start going for Feint Attacks as Dusclops gets off another 2 Protects. Slightly irritating considering I could have used these turns to get off Growths, but I couldn't have known it was going to protect, and I didn't really want to end up risking getting confused again. On the third turn, however, I managed to get a Feint Attack through, getting the one-hit KO on the Dusclops. Phoebe sends out a second Dusclops, which also goes down to a single Feint Attack. Phoebe's Bayonetta does outspeed Longtails, but only gets off a weak Shadow Ball before also being KO'd with a Feint Attack. Fourth is Sableye, who survives the Feint Attacks on basically what looks like 2 HP. This allows him to get off a double team, and on the next turn Phoebe heals, meaning that I have an opportunity to go through another Growth. That means the second Feint Attack on the next turn is able to cleanly get the one shot on the Sableye. And then last for Phoebe is another Bayonetta, who is also able to get off the Shadow Ball, but then goes down to a Feint Attack. That was ridiculously easy, thank you Longtails. Third is Glacier. Half of my team being grass types, I'm slightly worried about, so fingers crossed this goes well. Glacier starts with Celio, and I start off with Tableshoe. I go through a Fake Out to get some chip, and then on the next turn outspeed and KO with the Brick Break. Good start. Then the weaker of Glacier's 2 Galeys comes out, and this one doesn't know Explosion, so it's a lot less scary. Tableshoe tanks an Ice Beam, think that coming in handy for once, and then goes for a single Brick Break, getting the KO. The third is the second Celio, which survives a Brick Break, meaning it's able to set up Hail. On the next turn, Glacier goes through a Heal, meaning I'm safe put the Celio back into the red with the second Brick Break, and then on the next turn, outspeed and KO with a third Brick Break. Next comes out the Exploding Galey, and I don't think I've got anything on my team that will survive an explosion from this thing, so I've just got to hope it explodes when I go through Protect. Turn 1 I Protect, and the Galey goes for an Ice Beam. That's really bad because now there's a chance Protect could fail. On the next turn I go through a Protect and it fails. Luckily Galey goes for a second Ice Beam that does crit, but I do survive. Now I have the problem that Galey is probably going to see the KO with any of its moves, so I have to Protect and hope it explodes, and unluckily it goes to Shadow Ball. I then either have to risk a switch here or hope that it explodes and I get another Protect off. I decide it's best to probably risk a switch, and I decide my best bet is Tuesday because if she can survive long enough, maybe she can put it to sleep. On the switch, luckily Galey goes for Hail, and then on the next turn I go for Sleep Powder as Tuesday gets hit with an Ice Beam. Luckily she survives and Sleep Powder connects, thank god. I then risk switching into Black Cat, who can deal the most neutral damage into this thing. On the switch, luckily Galey stays asleep and then able to get 3 Leaf Blades off, bringing down the Exploding Gid. Thank god that thing's gone. Glacier's final Pokemon is a Walrein however, and this could be an issue as my Pokemon are getting really low at this point. I start off with a Protect to stall Hail and then go through a Leaf Blade, hoping that Black Cat will survive the Ice Beam that's coming. Leaf Blade hits hard, but unfortunately full rain puts it back above half. Somehow Black Cat survives on 11 HP. I then switch into Candle to hopefully bring this thing low enough to where Friday can finish it off. I take a body slam on the switch, which annoyingly paralyzes. I then take a second body slam, leaving me just below half health before getting off an underwhelming Earthquake. I'm then able to get off a second Earthquake, which just misses the KO, meaning Glacier heals back to full next turn. This was a total misplay. If I'd switched out to Friday before the second Earthquake, I would have been able to outspeed and get the KO. As it is though, Rain is now at full HP and I have to switch. I switch into Friday, who tanks a Surf on the switch in, but unfortunately just misses the KO with a Thunderbolt on the following turn, meaning she is hit with a second Surf. Rest in peace Friday, you went down because of my misplay, and that's on me. Luckily I can then send in Table Shoe, who can get the KO with a Fake Out, but with the loss of Friday our chances of winning just got a lot slimmer. Especially because up next is Drake and his dragon types. I'm hoping Candle will be able to do enough with Ice Beam to wreck through Drake's team to the point where everyone else can clean up. Here goes nothing then. I start off with Candle and Drake starts off with the Shelgon. Annoyingly, Shelgon gets off and Protect to start draining my Ice Beam PP, and then on the second turn the Ice Beam connects but just misses the KO, meaning we take a Rock Tomb. Bad start. Drake then heals but we get a slightly higher roll on the second Ice Beam, meaning we get the KO this time. Next up is Altaria, who gets off a strong double edge before going down to a single Ice Beam. Third is Kingdra, the only Pokemon Candle can't really deal with an Ice Beam, so I switch into Longtails. On the switch, Kingdra goes through a Dragon Dance and then I connect with a Leech Seed after being hit by a Smoke Screen. I then hit a really hard Needle Arm that crits as Kingdra goes through a second Dragon Dance. This thing is now getting scary. I decide to switch into Tuesday, who luckily survives a non-crit Body Slam. On the next turn, Kingdra gets greedy and goes for a third Dragon Dance, meaning thanks to Leech Seed chip, Tuesday is able to get the KO with the single Giga Drain. Drake's down to his last two Pokemon, the first of which is Flygon. I decide I'm fairly safe switching into Table Shoe here, as I assume the Flygon will probably go through a Flamethrower, and Table Shoe has Thick Fat. I predict correctly and Table Shoe tanks the Flamethrower with ease, but gets burned on the switch. That's really bad. I use Fake Out for some chip and then go through a Brick Break that does nothing while surviving an Earthquake that nearly takes out Table Shoe. I decide I have to hope Black Cat can survive the Flamethrower and take this Flygon down to preserve Candle for Salamence. On the switch, Black Cat takes a really weak crunch and then on the next turn does a decent amount of damage with Leaf Blade, but unfortunately Flygon gets a crit at the worst possible time, bringing down Black Cat with a Flamethrower. Rest in peace Black Cat, your 9 lives lasted the 8 gyms and 3 elite full members, so you really played against the odds there. I then had to risk a second crit against this murderous Flygon and risk Longtail. Switch her in and go through a Needle Arm, and luckily survive. This lets Longtails get off a Needle Arm and take down the Flygon. Or it would if it doesn't survive on basically no HP. This means on the next turn Drake heals back to full and I have no choice but to let Longtails go down after getting off another Needle Arm. Rest in peace Longtails, your cactus juice was the quenchiest. I now have to hope that Tuesday can survive the Flamethrower to maybe put the Flygon to sleep, or I will probably just lose the run at this point. Somehow Tuesday survives and connects with the Sleep Powder. That was incredibly clutch. My Fallen Grass types must be looking over me at this point because Flygon stays asleep, letting us get off 2 Giga Drains to the KO. Drake's last Pokemon is the Salamence, and I decide Tuesday has been so clutch this whole fight already. Why not take one more risk? So I stay in, survive another Flamethrower, and then connect with another Sleep Powder, Tuesday through the MVP. This lets me cleanly switch into Candle, who after 2 Ice Beams takes down the Salamence. What a fight. I've lost half my team and things are looking grim, but we're going to go down fighting. So it's on to the champion. I start off with Candle and Wallace starts off with his own Wailord. Candle takes a really hard double edge from Wallace's Wailord as I get off a slightly less powerful Earthquake. On the next turn I decide I might as well risk a crit and go for a second Earthquake while being put into the red with another double edge. Surprisingly, on the next turn Wallace switches into Ludicolo, meaning my third Earthquake doesn't do much. I then switch into Tuesday, who is easily able to tank a Giga Drain. On the next turn Ludicolo goes to double team, but it doesn't matter because Tuesday hits through and lands a Sludge Bomb, which unfortunately doesn't get the KO. Is anybody surprised at this point? This means before I can get off the second Sludge Bomb, the Ludicolo gets off a really hard Surf that crits before going down. Next Wailord comes out, and I know Wallace is going to heal, so I switch into Table Shoe as Wallace brings the Wailord back to full HP. I then get some chip with Fake Out, and then hit a decently hard Brick Break as Wailord goes through a Rain Dance. Wailord then uses Water Spout on the next turn, that of course crits. Do you really need to keep getting all these crits, Wallace? It's already a 3v6. Unfortunately, as much as I complain, the crit does bring down the ever reliable Table Shoe. Rest in peace buddy, your legacy will not be forgotten. On the next turn I send out Tuesday, who luckily dodges a Blizzard, meaning Tuesday is able to connect a Giga Drain, which for the final time this run just misses the KO by an inch. I decide I have to risk another Blizzard here, that connects, but somehow Tuesday survives on 10 HP, meaning we get off a single Sludge Bomb, bringing the behemoth down. Unfortunately though, this is the end. Wallace then sends out his Milotic and there's nothing I can do to stop stop it outspeeding and knocking out both my remaining Pokemon with Surf. Rest in peace guys, you gave it your all to the last second, and that's the end of the run. I could replay the whole game again for the one last fight, but honestly I'm pretty happy with how far we got. This one was really challenging, so even making it to the champion is an accomplishment in my book. And who knows, maybe I'll give this run a retry in the future. Thanks so much for watching. I hope people don't mind that I ended this video on a loss. Again, we gave it our all, but sometimes losses are inevitable. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and thanks again for watching. I'll see you all next time.